The small town of Willow Creek, Ohio, was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, and life moved at the pace of a lazy summer afternoon. Rows of modest ranch-style houses lined quiet streets, their lawns neatly trimmed, with American flags fluttering on porches. It was a place where dreams felt just out of reach, especially for Emma Thompson, who had spent the last 5 years pouring her heart into a marriage that seemed to teeter on the edge of hope and despair. Emma, at 32, had a warm smile that could light up a room, though lately it rarely reached her eyes. She carried a few extra pounds, a fact she tried not to dwell on, but which gnawed at her confidence like a persistent ache. Her husband, Tom, was the opposite: lean, restless, and always chasing the next big opportunity. Their marriage, though built on love, had been tested by years of financial strain. The small auto repair shop Tom ran barely kept them afloat, and Emma's part-time job as a cashier at the local grocery store did little to ease the burden. Their bank account was a constant reminder of what they didn't have, and the weight of unpaid bills pressed heavily on Emma's heart. Yet, Emma held on to hope. She believed in Tom's ambition. His late-night talks about building something bigger, a tech startup that would revolutionize how small businesses managed inventory. One day, he'd say, his blue eyes sparkling with conviction, "We're going to make it big. No more scraping by. Just you wait." She'd nod, her chestnut hair falling over her shoulder, and muster a smile. She loved him fiercely, even when the stress made him distant, his mind consumed by plans and pitches. They were a team, she told herself. Partners in this dream of a better life. Their tiny house on Maple Street was a testament to their struggles. The paint on the walls was peeling, the kitchen appliances were outdated, and the couch sagged in the middle from years of use. But Emma made it a home. She hung framed photos of their early days, Tom grinning at their wedding, his arm around her waist, both of them young and certain love would conquer all. She kept the place spotless, cooked hearty meals like meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and tried to keep Tom's spirits high. "We've got each other," she'd say, squeezing his hand across the dinner table. He'd squeeze back, but lately, his grip felt weaker, his mind elsewhere. One crisp October morning in 2025, everything changed. Tom burst through the front door, his face alight with a rare excitement. "Emma, you won't believe this." He waved an email printout like a profi. "I got an invite to pitch at a tech conference in Chicago. Big investors, the kind who can fund the startup. This is a tower shot." Emma's heart leaped. She rushed over, throwing her arms around him. "Tom, that's incredible." Her voice trembled with pride. She could see it, their future unfolding, free of debt, maybe even a bigger house, a life where they could breathe easy. She kissed him, her lips lingering on his, and whispered, "You're going to kill it. I know you will." The next few days were a whirlwind. Tom prepared his pitch, practicing in front of Emma until she could recite it herself. She helped him choose a sharp blazer and tie, ironing his shirt with care. The morning he left for Chicago, she stood at the door, her hazel eyes bright with encouragement. "Go get Tom," she said, adjusting his tie. He kissed her forehead, promised to call, and drove off in their beat-up sedan, the engine rattling as he disappeared down the street. The first day passed quietly. Emma kept busy, restocking shelves at the store, chatting with regulars about the weather. Tom texted once, saying the conference was insane and he'd call later. She smiled at her phone, imagining him charming the room, but later never came. That night, her calls went to voicemail, her texts unanswered. By the second day, worry crept in. She left messages, her voice steady at first. "Hey, just checking in, how's it going?" By the third, her tone was tight. "Tom, please, call me, I'm getting worried." On the fourth day, a call came, but not from Tom. It was Sarah, a friend from high school who'd moved to Chicago. "Emma, you need to know something," Sarah said, her voice hesitant. "I saw Tom at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. He's not alone." Emma's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" she asked, gripping the phone. Sarah paused. "He's with some woman. They're staying there, I thought you should know." The world tilted. Emma's breath caught, her mind racing. There had to be a mistake. Tom wouldn't do that. She thanked Sarah, hung up, and stared at the kitchen table, her hands trembling. She tried Tom again, voicemail. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She booked a bus ticket to Chicago, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and determination. She packed a small bag, her movements mechanical, and boarded the Greyhound that night. the hum of the engine doing little to calm her racing thoughts. Chicago was a shock to Emma's system. Willow Creek was all open fields and familiar faces. Chicago was a maze of towering skyscrapers and honking taxis. The Ritz-Carlton loomed ahead, its glass facade gleaming under the city lights. Emma's sneakers felt out of place on the polished marble floor of the lobby. Her denim jacket and faded jeans screamed small town, but she didn't care. She needed answers. She scanned the elegant lounge with its crystal chandeliers and leather armchairs, then ascended the staircase, her heart thudding against her ribs. Then she saw him, Tom, standing in the middle of the room, looking like someone she barely recognized. His usual flannel and jeans were gone, replaced by a tailored suit that screamed money. Beside him was a woman, young and stunning, her blonde hair cascading over a sleek black dress. She clung to Tom's arm, her red nails glinting possessively. Emma's throat tightened. She marched forward, her voice shaking but firm. Tom, what the hell is going on? I've been calling you for days. Did you get the deal? And who is she? Before Tom could speak, the woman smirked, her voice dripping with disdain. I'm Claire, Tom's fiancée. He doesn't have time for someone like you, sweetheart. The words hit like a slap, the term fiancé slicing through Emma's chest. She felt the air leave her lungs, her vision blurring. Fiancé, she whispered, turning to Tom. You told me about a contract. Tom, what is this? Tom's face was unreadable, his eyes avoiding hers. Emma, don't make a scene, he said coldly. It's over. I got the deal, millions. I'm moving on. You'll get some money to tide you over. My lawyer will send divorce papers. Sign them. Emma's knees buckled, but she caught herself. You don't love me anymore. Because you're rich now. Because I'm not good enough. Her voice cracked, tears stinging her eyes. Tom shrugged, his expression hard. I've outgrown you, Emma. That's just how it is. He turned to Claire, pulled her close, and kissed her, his lips lingering as if to drive the knife deeper. Emma's heart shattered, the pieces scattering across the polished floor. A voice broke the moment. Excuse me, are you Emma Thompson? She turned, blinking through tears, to see a man in a sharp suit, his dark hair neatly combed, his brown eyes warm with recognition. It took a moment, but then it hit her. Oh my God, James Carter, her childhood neighbor from Willow Creek, the boy she'd raced bikes with, now stood before her, transformed into someone who radiated success. Emma, it's been forever, James said, his smile genuine. I've missed you. She choked back a sob. Missed you too, James. His gaze flicked to Tom and Claire, his jaw tightening. I saw what happened. Is that your husband? Was, Emma said, her voice breaking. Until today. He's leaving me for her. Says I'm not good enough now that he's rich. James's eyes narrowed. Interesting, he said, his tone clipped. Because I'm the one who greenlit his deal. Emma's breath caught, her mind reeling. James's voice softened, but there was steel beneath it. Don't worry, Emma, I'll handle this. As Tom and Claire disappeared into the hotel's depths, Emma stood frozen, her world in ruins. James touched her arm gently. Can I take you home? She wiped her tears, her voice barely a whisper. I don't have a home anymore. Then, come with me, James said, his voice steady. You can stay at my place as long as you need. Emma hesitated, glancing at the opulent lobby. What about your wife? How do you explain bringing me home? James chuckled, a warm sound that eased the ache in her chest. No wife. I'm single. You're welcome. Always. He offered his arm, and she took it, letting him lead her toward the unknown. The drive to James's penthouse was quiet, the Chicago skyline blurring past the tinted windows of his sleek black SUV. Emma stared out, her mind heavy with Tom's betrayal. Just hours ago, she'd been a wife, clinging to hope. Now she was adrift, humiliated, abandoned. James glanced at her, his voice soft. You don't have to keep replaying it, Emma. It hurts, I know, but you're stronger than this. She let out a bitter laugh. Strong, James. I gave Tom everything. I stayed when we had nothing, believing we'd make it together. Now he's got money, and I'm nothing to him. James sighed, his hands steady on the wheel. Some people change when money comes, but trust me, Emma, Tom's choices say more about him than you. They pulled up to a high-rise in Chicago's Gold Coast, a building that screamed wealth with its glass exterior and doorman. Emma's eyes widened at the sight of it, taller than anything in Willow Creek. with views of Lake Michigan shimmering in the distance. "This is your place?" she asked, incredulous. "One of them," James said with a grin, stepping out to open her door. She hesitated, feeling small in her worn clothes. "You sure it's okay for me to stay here?" "Absolutely," he said, leading her inside. The penthouse was a world apart from her life. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Chandeliers cast a soft glow, and the air smelled faintly of leather and citrus. "You hungry?" James asked, loosening his tie. Emma shook her head. "I'd rather cook. It keeps my mind busy." He raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Kitchen's yours." The kitchen was a dream. Stainless steel appliances, marble counters, and cabinets stocked with gourmet ingredients. Emma opened a cabinet, looking for something to cook, when a small book caught her eye, A Journey to Wellness, a handwritten journal with recipes for herbal teas, meal plans, and exercise tips. Curious, she flipped through it, finding detailed notes on mindfulness and healthy living. A spark of something hope maybe flickered inside her. James leaned against the doorway, smiling. "Interested in that?" "It was my mom's. She was overweight when I was a kid, but she followed that journal and transformed herself." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Got a picture?" James pulled out his phone, showing her a photo of a vibrant, fit woman in her 60s, radiating confidence. "She looks amazing," Emma said, awestruck. "She worked hard," James said. "If you want to try it, I'll help you." For the first time that day, Emma smiled. "I think I will." The first morning in James Carter's Chicago penthouse felt like waking up in someone else's life. Emma lay in the guest room's king-sized bed, the soft linen sheets a stark contrast to the lumpy mattress she'd shared with Tom back in Willow Creek. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow across the room's sleek furniture and hardwood floors. She stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying the scene at the Ritz-Carlton. Tom's cold dismissal, Claire's cruel sneer, the shattering of her world. Her chest ached, but the tears didn't come as easily now. Maybe she was too exhausted, or maybe something else was stirring inside her, something that felt like the faint pulse of resolve. She swung her legs over the bed, her bare feet touching the cool floor. The room was bigger than her entire living room back home, with a walk-in closet and a bathroom that looked like it belonged in a spa. James had insisted she make herself at home, but home felt like a foreign concept. Home was the creaky house on Maple Street, the smell of her meatloaf in the oven, Tom's laughter when they'd danced to old country songs in the kitchen. That home was gone, replaced by this gleaming, unfamiliar world. Emma pulled on a pair of sweatpants and a loose t-shirt, her reflection catching her eye in the full-length mirror. She paused, studying herself, her rounded shoulders, the extra weight she'd carried for years, the tired lines around her hazel eyes. She wasn't the woman Tom had married, the one with a bright smile and dreams as big as his. Somewhere along the way, she'd let herself fade, pouring everything into supporting him. "You're not enough," his voice echoed in her head. She clenched her fists, pushing the thought away. She wasn't here to dwell on Tom. She was here to survive. In the kitchen, James was already up, sipping coffee at the island counter, his dark hair slightly he wore a casual sweater and jeans, a far cry from the polished suit he'd had on last night, but he still looked like he belonged in this world of wealth. "Morning," he said, his smile warm. "Sleep okay?" "As well as I could," Emma said, managing a small smile. She glanced at the counter, where the wellness journal she'd found last night sat next to a cutting board. "Mind if I make breakfast?" "Be my guest," James said, gesturing to the fridge. "But don't feel like you have to. I can order something. Cooking helps me think," she said, already pulling out eggs, spinach, and a carton of almond milk she'd spotted. As she cracked eggs into a bowl, the familiar rhythm of chopping and whisking steadied her. She made omelets, adding a sprinkle of herbs she found in a jar labeled organic. The scent filled the kitchen, grounding her in a way nothing else had since she'd left Willow Creek. James watched, leaning back in his chair. "You always loved cooking, didn't you? I remember you sneaking cookies to me when we were kids." Emma laughed, the sound surprising her. "You were terrible at keeping it a secret. My mom always knew when I'd been baking for you." "Hey, I was 10. Cut me some slack." He grinned, and for a moment, they were just two kids from Willow Creek, not a heartbroken woman and a tech mogul. They ate in comfortable silence, the omelets surprisingly good despite her distracted state. When they finished, James picked up the journal and slid it toward her. So, you seemed curious about this last night, thinking of giving it a try. Emma hesitated, her fingers tracing the journal's worn cover. The pages were filled with handwritten notes from James's mother, recipes for herbal teas, meal plans rich in vegetables and lean proteins, yoga sequences and tips for mindfulness. It wasn't just a diet, it was a lifestyle, one that promised balance and strength. Your mom really turned her life around with this, she asked. She did, James said, his voice softening. She was in a rough place after my dad left, overweight, stressed, raising me alone. This journal was her roadmap. She said it wasn't about looking different, it was about feeling like herself again. Emma nodded, flipping to a page about a detox tea made with ginger and lemon. I don't know where to start. James, I'm a mess right now. You're not a mess, he said firmly. You're hurt, and that's okay. But you're here, and you're stronger than you think. If you want to try this, I'll help. Groceries, a yoga mat, whatever you need. She looked at him, his earnestness cutting through her doubt. Why are you doing this, James? You don't owe me anything. He leaned forward, his brown eyes steady. Because I know you, Emma. You were always the one cheering everyone else on. You deserve someone in your corner now. Her throat tightened, but she nodded. Okay, I'll try. Not for Tom, not for anyone else, for me. That afternoon, Emma sat cross-legged on the living room floor, the journal open in front of her. She started small, following a recipe for a green smoothie packed with kale, banana, and chia seeds. It tasted strange-earthy, not like the sugary coffee drinks she was used to, but she drank it anyway, feeling a tiny spark of accomplishment. James set up a corner of the penthouse with a yoga mat and a Bluetooth speaker, playing soft instrumental music as she tried the journal's beginner poses. Her body protested, stiff from years of neglect, but she pushed through, sweat beading on her forehead. The first few days were a blur of adjustment. Emma barely left the guest room except to cook or follow the journal's routines. The pain of Tom's betrayal was a constant weight, creeping into her thoughts at night. When the city's hum couldn't drown it out, she'd lie awake, replaying his words, "I've outgrown you." She'd see Claire's smirk, the way Tom's hand rested on her waist. Each memory was a stab, but she refused to let it consume her. She'd get up, brew the journal's herbal tea, peppermint and chamomile, soothing and bitter, and read the affirmations James's mother had written. You are enough. Your strength is within. James gave her space but checked in daily, his presence a quiet anchor. One evening, as they sat on the penthouse balcony overlooking Lake Michigan, he handed her a glass of lemon-infused water. How's it going? He asked, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. It's hard, Emma admitted, sipping the drink. The food's weird, the exercises hurt, and I keep thinking about him. She didn't need to say Tom's name. I feel like I failed, James. Like I wasn't enough for him. James shook his head. You didn't fail. Tom made his choices, and they're on him. You stayed through the hard times, Em. That's strength, not failure. She looked out at the water, its surface shimmering under the moonlight. I just don't know who I am without him. I was his wife, his cheerleader. Now what? You're Emma, James said simply, and you're figuring out who she is. That's enough for now. His words lingered, and over the next few weeks, Emma threw herself into the journal's plan. She woke early, blending smoothies and grilling chicken with spices she'd never used before. She walked along the lakefront, the crisp Chicago air filling her lungs, and tried yoga poses in the penthouse's airy living room. The journal wasn't just about food or exercise. It emphasized mindset, journaling thoughts, practicing gratitude, letting go of what didn't serve her. She started writing, pouring out her anger and hurt, then listing things she was thankful for. James's kindness, the chance to start over, the way her body felt a little lighter each day. One morning, as she tied her sneakers for a walk, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked less puffy, her skin brighter. Her jeans, once snug, hung looser at the waist. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to make her pause. You're doing this? She whispered to herself, a small smile breaking through. James noticed the changes to Tupiaco, he said one evening, handing her a plate of grilled salmon she'd cooked. Not just outside, but inside. You're starting to believe in yourself again. Emma blushed, ducking her head. You're just being nice. I'm not, he said, his tone serious. I see it, Em. You're coming alive. The compliment warmed her, but it also scared her. She wasn't used to feeling seen, not like this. Tom had always been too busy chasing his dreams to notice her efforts. James, though, saw everything, the way she'd linger over the journal, the determination in her eyes when she finished a yoga session. It was unsettling, but it also felt like a lifeline. One day, James came home with an offer. "I've been watching you, Emma," he said, setting his briefcase on the counter. "You're organized, smart, and you've got a knack for keeping things on track. How'd you like a job at my company? We need someone to manage projects, and I think you'd be perfect." Emma stared, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "Me, James, I'm a cashier. I don't know anything about tech." "You don't need to," he said. "You know how to handle people, keep things moving. I'll teach you the rest. What do you say?" She hesitated. The idea of working in a sleek Chicago office, surrounded by people who spoke in terms of metrics and deliverables, was daunting, but the alternative, staying stuck, defined by Tom's rejection, was worse. "Okay," she said finally, "I'll try." Her first day at Carter Innovations was overwhelming. The office was a hive of activity, glass-walled meeting rooms, employees tapping away at laptops, the hum of ambition in the air. Emma felt out of place in her simple blouse and slacks. But James introduced her with confidence, calling her our new project coordinator. She shadowed him, taking notes as he explained timelines, budgets, and client expectations. By the end of the week, she was organizing schedules, tracking progress, and even suggesting improvements to a team workflow. Her colleagues, initially skeptical, began to respect her quiet competence. The work gave her purpose, something to focus on besides the ache of Tom's betrayal. She still thought of him, wondering if he was happy with Claire, if he ever regretted leaving her, but the thoughts came less often. She was building something new, piece by piece. Her clothes continued to loosen, her energy soared, and she started to carry herself differently, her shoulders back, her chin high. One evening, James invited her to a networking event at a downtown venue, a sleek rooftop bar overlooking the Chicago River. "You've been killing it at work," he said. "Come, celebrate. You deserve it." Emma hesitated. She hadn't been to anything fancy in years, and the idea of mingling with Chicago's elite made her stomach twist. "What if I don't fit in?" she asked, tugging at her sweater. James grinned. "You will. Trust me, Em. You're not the same woman who walked into that hotel." Encouraged, she went shopping, using her first paycheck to buy a fitted navy dress that hugged her slimmer figure. When she stepped out of her room that evening, James's eyes widened. "Wow," he said, his voice soft. "You look incredible." She blushed, smoothing the dress. "You think so?" "I know so," he said, offering his arm. "Let's go show them who you are." The event was dazzling. Business tycoons in tailored suits, influencers snapping selfies, the clink of champagne glasses filling the air. Emma felt a flutter of nerves, but she reminded herself of the journal's words. "You belong where you choose to stand." She mingled with James, her smile growing more natural as she chatted with his colleagues. People noticed her, just her appearance, but her warmth, her quick wit. She caught whispers, glances, but they weren't cruel. They were admiring. Then, across the room, she saw him, Tom. Her heart stuttered. He stood with Claire, but he looked different. His suit, slightly rumpled, his face lined with stress. Claire's arm was looped through his, but her smile was tight, her eyes scanning the room for someone more interesting. Tom's gaze wandered, then locked on Emma. His brows furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. Emma straightened, her pulse racing but her resolve firm. She wasn't the broken woman he'd left at the Ritz. She was someone new, someone stronger. She met his eyes, a small smirk playing on her lips. "Hello, Tom," she said, her voice steady. Tom blinked, his mouth opening slightly. "Emma, you look different." "I know," she said, tilting her head. James stepped closer, his presence a quiet strength. "Is there a problem, Tom?" he asked, his tone cool. Tom swallowed, his eyes darting between them. I didn't recognize her." James's smile was sharp. "That's because the woman you left behind doesn't exist anymore." The rooftop bars, lights glittered against the Chicago skyline, the city sprawling below like a map of possibilities. Emma stood tall in her navy dress, the fabric hugging her slimmer frame, her hazel eyes catching the glow of the string lights overhead. Tom's stunned expression lingered in her mind, but it wasn't the victory she'd expected. Seeing him rumpled, stressed, a shadow of the confident man who'd abandoned her stirred a mix of emotions. There was satisfaction, Yes, but also a pang of sadness for the life they'd once shared. She pushed it down, focusing on the warmth of James's hand at her elbow, grounding her in the present. James leaned in, his voice low. You okay, Em? His brown eyes searched hers, steady and reassuring. She nodded, managing a smile. Yeah, it's just weird seeing him like that. He doesn't get to define you anymore, James said, his tone firm but kind. You're here because of you, not him. Emma took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. She wasn't the broken woman Tom had left behind. She was Emma Thompson, project coordinator at Carter Innovations, a woman rebuilding her life one determined step at a time. She straightened her shoulders, her smile growing more confident. You're right, let's keep mingling. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Emma charmed a venture capitalist with her quick wit, laughed with a group of developers over a shared love of Chicago's deep dish pizza, and even exchanged business cards with a marketing executive who admired her organizational skills. She felt like she belonged, a feeling she hadn't known in years. When she caught Tom watching her from across the room, his face a mix of regret and disbelief, she didn't flinch. She tilted her chin up, her gaze steady, and turned back to her conversation. Back at the penthouse, Emma kicked off her heels, her feet aching but her heart lighter than it had been in months. She sank onto the plush sofa, the city's lights twinkling through the windows. James joined her, loosening his tie. You were a rock star tonight, he said, handing her a glass of sparkling water with a slice of cucumber. Everyone was talking about you. She laughed, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. They were probably just being polite. No way, James said, sitting beside her. You've got a presence, Em. People notice it. I noticed it. Her cheeks warmed, and she sipped her drink to hide her flustered expression. James had a way of making her feel seen, not just as the woman she was becoming, but as the person she'd always been. It was different from Tom's fleeting compliments, which had always come with an agenda. James's kindness felt genuine, and it scared her a little how much she was starting to rely on it. The next morning, Emma woke with renewed determination. She flipped open the wellness journal, now dog-eared from daily use, and brewed a detox tea of ginger, turmeric, and honey. The bitter warmth steadied her as she planned her day. At Carter Innovations, she was taking on more responsibility, managing a team of developers, Gymum system developers, on a critical software project. Her days were filled with spreadsheets, meetings, and emails, but she thrived on the challenge. Her colleagues began to seek her input, and even the CEO, a gruff but fair man named Mr. Hargrove, praised her efficiency during a team meeting. You've got a knack for this, Thompson, he'd said, his rare smile a badge of honor. Emma beamed, her confidence growing with each small victory. Her physical transformation kept pace with her professional growth. The journal's routines, smoothies packed with greens, lean proteins, and daily yoga were no longer a chore but a ritual. She'd lost 20 pounds, her clothes fitting loosely, her face glowing with newfound energy. She started running along the lakefront, her sneakers pounding the pavement as the Chicago skyline loomed in the distance. Each step felt like a reclaiming of herself, a shedding of the weight both physical and emotional that had held her back. One chilly November evening, James found her in the penthouse's gym, stretching after a yoga session. You're sticking with it, he said, leaning against the doorframe, a towel slung over his shoulder. Trying to, she said, wiping sweat from her brow. It's not easy. Some days I want to eat a whole pizza and call it quits. He chuckled, joining her on the mat. You're tougher than that. Look at you, you're glowing. She rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her. You keep saying that. I'm starting to think you're just trying to butter me up. No buttering needed, he said, his grin playful. You're killing it, Em. Workouts, all of it. Their banter flowed easily, a mix of childhood familiarity and something new, something unspoken. Emma felt it a flutter in her chest when he looked at her too long, a warmth when their hands brushed. She pushed it aside, focusing on her routine, but it lingered, growing stronger with each shared moment. At work, Emma's role expanded. James assigned her to oversee a high-stakes project, a logistics app for small businesses, the same kind Tom's startup had pitched. She dove in, coordinating developers, designers, and testers with a precision that surprised even herself. But when she reviewed Tom's company's progress reports, her stomach sank. The work was shoddy, deadlines missed, budgets overspent. She flagged the issues for James, her voice steady despite the personal sting. "They're not delivering," she said during a meeting in his office. "The code's buggy, and they've burned through half the budget with nothing to show." James frowned, scanning the reports. "This is unacceptable. I gave them a chance because of their pitch, but this..." He shook his head. "You're on this now, Emma. Hold them accountable." Her heart raced. "Me, James? That's Tom's company." "I know," he said, his gaze steady. "You're the best person for the job. You're fair, and you won't let personal stuff get in the way. Can you handle it?" She swallowed hard, nodding. "I can." The next day, she called Tom's office, her voice calm but firm. "We need a meeting. Your team's behind schedule, and the deliverables are subpar. We're reviewing everything tomorrow." Tom's voice crackled through the phone, tense. "Emma, come on, it's complicated. We need more time." "You've had time," she said, her tone unwavering. "You've got until tomorrow to explain. Be ready." The meeting was a disaster. Tom arrived at Carter Innovation's sleek conference room, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. Claire wasn't there, but his team's lead developer, a nervous young man named Greg, fidgeted beside him. Emma led the discussion, her laptop open to a detailed breakdown of their failures. "You've missed 3 milestones," she said, pointing to the screen. "The app crashes during basic tests, and you've overspent by 30%. What's going on?" Tom shifted uncomfortably. "We hit some snags. Supply chain issues, staffing problems." "Those are excuses," Emma interrupted, her voice steady. "You took a multi-million-dollar contract. Where's the money going?" Greg paled, glancing at Tom. We had some unexpected expenses." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Like what?" "Your financials show lavish dinners, private jet rentals." "That's not project spending." Tom's face reddened. "You don't understand how business works, Emma. Relationships matter. We're building connections." "Connections?" She leaned forward, her confidence unshakable. "You're supposed to be building an app. Instead, you're throwing parties while we're left with nothing." The room was silent. James, sitting at the head of the table, nodded approvingly. "Emma's right. You've got 1 month to deliver, or we're pulling the contract. You'll repay every cent." Tom's jaw dropped. "James, please, you can't do this." "We're close." "You're not," Emma said, her voice cutting through. "You've got 4 weeks. Get it together." After the meeting, Tom lingered, his eyes pleading. "Emma, can we talk alone?" She crossed her arms. "Say what you need to say." He glanced around, lowering his voice. "I messed up, okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. Things got out of hand with Claire. With the money, I'm in over my head." Emma's heart twinged, but she held firm. "You made your choices, Tom. This isn't about us. It's about the project. Do your job, or face the consequences." He stared at her, his eyes glistening. "You've changed." "Yeah," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "I have." That evening, back at the penthouse, Emma sat at the kitchen counter, the wellness journal open beside her. She was sipping a chamomile tea, its soothing warmth a contrast to the day's tension. James joined her, his expression thoughtful. "You were tough on him today. I'm proud of you." She sighed, setting down her mug. "It wasn't easy. Part of me wanted to let him off, but he doesn't get to skate by because of our past." "You're doing the right thing," James said. "And you're damn good at it." She smiled, her heart fluttering. "Thanks to you. You gave me a chance, James. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't owe me anything," he said, his voice low. He reached across the counter, his hand brushing hers. The touch sent a jolt through her, and she pulled back, her cheeks flushing. "I should get to bed," she said quickly, standing. "Big day tomorrow." He nodded, his eyes lingering on her. "Good night, Em." As she lay in bed that night, Emma's mind raced. James's touch, his unwavering support, was stirring something she wasn't ready to face. She'd loved Tom so fiercely, and he'd broken her. Could she trust her heart again? She pushed the thought away, focusing on the journal's mantra. "Your strength is within." She was enough, and she was proving it every day. Over the next few weeks, Emma's transformation deepened. She ran faster, her body stronger, her clothes now a size smaller. At work, she led her team with confidence, earning praise from Mr. Hargrove and her colleagues. Tom's company, however, continued to falter. Weekly reports showed little progress, and Emma's follow-ups grew stricter. "You're out of time," she told Tom during a tense call. "The board's reviewing your contract next week. Show results, or it's over." Tom's voice was desperate. "Emma, please, I'm trying. Claire's, she's been spending a lot, and I can't." "That's not my problem," she said, her tone firm. "Fix it." The board meeting came, and Tom's team presented a half-finished app riddled with bugs. Emma laid out the facts, her voice steady as she detailed their failures. James delivered the final blow. "We're terminating the contract. You'll repay the full amount, plus penalties." Tom's face went pale. "You can't do this. I'll be ruined." "You did this," James said. "You had every chance." After the meeting, Tom cornered Emma in the hallway, his eyes wild. "Emma, please, talk to James. I'm begging you. I've lost everything Claire left me last night." She took half the money and ran. Emma's heart clenched, but she stood tall. "You threw me away, Tom. You thought I wasn't enough. Now you're facing the consequences. I can't help you." He slumped against the wall, tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Em." She took a deep breath, her voice calm. "I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing my job. You need to do yours." That night, James took her to dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant in the Loop, a rare break from their hectic schedules. Over plates of spaghetti carbonara, he raised his glass of wine. "To you, Emma. You're unstoppable." She clinked her glass against his, her heart racing. "I couldn't have done it without you." He smiled, his eyes warm. "You did it, yourself. I just gave you a nudge." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, stories of their childhood, dreams for the future. As they walked along the riverfront afterward, the city lights dancing on the water, James stopped, turning to her. "Em, there's something I need to say." Her breath caught. "What?" He took her hand, his touch warm and steady. "I've always cared about you. Back in Willow Creek, I had the biggest crush on you, but I was too shy to say it. Now, I can't stop thinking about you." Her heart pounded, a mix of fear and hope swirling inside her. "James, I don't know if I'm ready." After, "Tom, I know," he said softly. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just want you to know I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Tears pricked her eyes, but she smiled. "Thank you, James. That means more than you know." A week later, James proposed a weekend getaway to his cabin in Wisconsin, a chance to escape the city's chaos. Emma agreed, her nerves tingling with anticipation. The cabin was a rustic retreat nestled among pine trees, its cozy interior warmed by a stone fireplace. They spent the weekend hiking, cooking together, and talking late into the night. On the last evening, as they sat by the fire, James took her hand again. "Emma, I love you," he said, his voice steady. "I've loved you since we were kids. I want to build a life with you when you're ready." Her heart swelled, the fear giving way to certainty. She leaned in, kissing him softly, her first kiss since Tom's betrayal. It felt like coming home. "I love you too," she whispered. The following week, back in Chicago, James proposed formally, presenting her with a stunning diamond ring. She said yes, tears streaming down her face as they embraced. At work, she continued to excel, her confidence unshakable. Tom's company collapsed under the weight of the lawsuit, his assets seized, his reputation in tatters. Emma felt no joy in his downfall, only closure. On the morning of her wedding, Emma stood before a mirror in a sleek white gown, her reflection radiant. She was no longer the woman Tom had discarded. She was Emma Thompson, strong, confident, loved. As she walked down the aisle toward James, the love in his eyes mirrored her own. Losing Tom had been the best thing that ever happened to her. It had set her free to become herself. The morning of Emma Thompson's wedding dawned crisp and clear, the Chicago skyline sparkling under a pale November sun. From the window of the bridal suite at the Drake Hotel, Emma watched the city hum, billow taxis weaving through traffic, Lake Michigan glinting like a sheet of glass. Her reflection in the full-length mirror caught her eye, and she paused, hardly recognizing the woman staring back. The sleek white gown hugged her transformed figure, its delicate lace tracing her collarbone, the satin skirt flowing to the floor. Her chestnut hair was swept into an elegant updo, a few soft curls framing her face. Her hazel eyes, once dulled by doubt, now shone with a quiet strength. She was no longer the Emma who'd stood heartbroken in a hotel lobby, abandoned by the man she'd loved. She was someone new, someone whole. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Sarah, her friend from Willow Creek who'd first alerted her to Tom's betrayal, poked her head in, her eyes widening. You look like a dream," she said, stepping inside with a bouquet of white roses and eucalyptus. "James is gonna lose it when he sees you." Emma laughed, smoothing her dress. "I hope so. I still can't believe this is happening." Sarah hugged her, careful not to crush the gown. "You deserve every second of this happiness, Em. After everything, you've earned it." The words settled over Emma like a warm blanket. Everything. The past year had been a whirlwind. Tom's betrayal, her move to Chicago, the grueling but rewarding work of rebuilding herself. She'd lost 30 pounds, not just in weight but in the burdens of self-doubt and heartbreak. The wellness journal, now a cherished relic on her nightstand, had been her guide, its recipes and affirmations a lifeline. But more than the physical changes, she'd gained something deeper, a sense of self that no one could take away. The bridal suite buzzed with activity, her mother fussing over her veil, her cousin adjusting the train, Sarah snapping photos on her phone. Emma's heart swelled as she looked at them, her family and friends who'd flown in from Ohio. Their presence, a reminder of the roots that grounded her. But it was James Carter she thought of most, the man waiting downstairs, who'd seen her at her lowest and believed in her anyway. The ceremony was held in the Drake's grand ballroom, a vision of elegance with its crystal chandeliers and gold-axed walls. White orchids and candles lined the aisle, their soft glow casting a warm light over the guests. As the string quartet played Pachelbel's canon, Emma stepped forward, her arm linked with her father's. The room blurred, but James stood, clear at the altar, his dark suit impeccable, his brown eyes locked on hers, his smile wide, unguarded, made her heart skip. This was home, she realized. Not a place, but a person. The vows were simple, but heartfelt. James promised to stand by her, to laugh with her, to remind her of her strength when she forgot. Emma, her voice steady, vowed to love him fiercely, to build a life of honesty and joy. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause, and Emma felt a weight lift, as if the last traces of her old life had dissolved. The reception was a celebration of everything Chicago: deep dish, pizza appetizers, a jazz band playing standards, and a skyline view that sparkled through the ballroom's windows. Emma and James danced their first dance to Ella Fitzgerald's At Last, her head resting against his chest, his heartbeat steady under her ear. "You're my forever, Em," he whispered, and she believed him. As they mingled with guests, Emma caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd, Mr. Hargrove, her boss at Carter Innovations, raising a glass of champagne. "To the woman who turned my projects around," he called out, earning laughs from her colleagues. Emma blushed, but pride warmed her chest. She'd gone from a cashier in Willow Creek to a respected project manager, her work shaping the company's success. It wasn't just a job, it was a purpose. The evening was perfect, but Emma's mind drifted to Tom, not out of longing but curiosity. She hadn't heard from him since the board meeting where his contract was terminated. James had kept her updated. Tom's company had collapsed, his assets seized to cover the lawsuit. Rumors swirled that he'd moved back to Ohio, living in a rented apartment, his dreams of wealth shattered. Part of her pitied him, but mostly, she felt free. His choices had set her on this path, and she was grateful for it. Later, as she and James cut the Kika towering creation of vanilla and raspberry, Sarah pulled her aside. "I heard something about Tom," she said, her voice low. "He tried to get a loan to save his company, but no one would touch him. Apparently, Claire cleaned out their accounts before she left. He's working at a car dealership now, barely scraping by." Emma nodded, processing the news. "I feel sorry for him," she admitted, "but he made his bed." Sarah squeezed her hand. "You're a better person than me, Em." "I'd be gloating." Emma smiled, shaking her head. "No gloating. I'm too happy to care." The night ended with fireworks over Lake Michigan, the bursts of color reflecting in the water. Emma and James stood on the balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the sky light up. "This is just the beginning," he said, kissing her forehead. "I know," she replied, her heart full, "and I'm ready." The weeks after the wedding were a whirlwind of adjustment. Emma moved out of the penthouse's guest room and into James's master suite, their shared space filled with laughter and late-night talks. She continued her work at Carter Innovations, taking on larger projects, her confidence a beacon for her team. The wellness journal remained a touchstone, its lessons now second nature: healthy meals, morning runs, moments of gratitude scribbled in a new notebook she'd started. One crisp December morning, Emma sat at her desk, reviewing a new project. Proposal. Her office, a small but bright space with a view of the loop, was decorated with photos her and James at the cabin. Their wedding day, a selfie with Sarah at the reception. A knock at the door startled her, and she looked up to see James, holding a file. "Got a minute?" he asked, his grin mischievous. "Always," she said, leaning back in her chair. "What's up?" He slid the file across her desk. "I'm putting you in charge of our biggest client yet. They want a full logistics overhaul, and I know you're the one to make it happen." Emma's eyes widened. "James, that's huge. Are you sure?" "Positive," he said, his pride evident. "You've proven yourself 100 times over. This is your moment." She opened the file, her mind already racing with ideas. "I won't let you down. You never do," he said, leaning down to kiss her. As winter settled over Chicago, Emma's life felt like a dream she'd never dared to imagine. She and James hosted holiday parties, their penthouse filled with friends and colleagues, the air warm with laughter and the scent of her homemade gingerbread. She ran along the lakefront, her breath visible in the cold, her body strong and capable. She was no longer defined by Tom's rejection or her past insecurities. She was Emma Carter, a woman who'd faced heartbreak and emerged stronger, loved, and whole. One evening, as she and James sat by the fireplace, snow falling outside, she pulled out her notebook and wrote a final entry. "I thought losing Tom was the end, but it was the start. I found myself, my strength, my love. I won." She closed the book, her heart at peace. The city glowed beyond the windows, a testament to her new beginning. With James by her side, she knew she could face anything. Her journey wasn't just about transformation, it was about triumph.